So this is going to be an audio book of the book I wrote and published independently. The book's called How to Find Yourself by me, Seth Kinstle. It's basically just like kind of my life story, but it's also having to do with mental illness and different things I experienced in life. And I named it How to Find Yourself because it seemed like it came from just my overall experience and dealing with my own self and everything. So it has 7 parts to it, chapters, whatever. The first one's called Past Troubles. But first I'll go on with the intro, and then I guess I'll just read the book. So here's the intro. The story you're about to read is real and comes from an actual life experience. I'm not proud of the crimes committed or the darkness I was surrounded with. I don't think I could have lived life any other way, though. My life happened, and depending on when you read this, it may still be happening. This is a story about a person who lost themselves so many times but persevered. Only through those experiences can this person live, by remembering the horrors he experienced. So part 1, Past Troubles. I always was obsessed with life and how I was real. I was alive and I'm me, this person. Somehow I'm alive, and it was so scary much of the time to me. Just being alive and seeing through these eyes of mine. The amazement never seemed to grow dull after I indulged in the concepts of reality. Much of what has happened so far has left me with a very difficult sort of equation. The equation of this person I seem to be and inevitably live in. I just always wondered how I was me and they were them. The obsession of self while looking at life through the first person, seeing everything, experiencing it all with this sort of gift of health. Being granted this gift to be alive and have the luxury of in-depth thoughts. For whatever reason, I'm still alive and breathing. It seems strange to me, having dealt with such extreme mental illness circumstances, when I look back with a relaxed, intuitive point of view, and it's just so strange how I could go from complete insane at the edge of reality, near death, to just normal and living this life of confidence and peace. Of course, it's not always peaceful, but for the most part, from what I've been through, it is. I've developed a certain perspective from all my troubles I went through, which a lot of people do. People have life experiences all the time and manage to slip through the fingers of fate unharmed. Being alive any day is a miracle, whether people choose to see it or not. Every day I'm alive, and the fact I'm able to carry on a conversation is a miracle. I can't say that what happened was anyone's fault, really. Growing up can be hard and grim. The circumstances can be equally bad as they can be good. Sometimes the worst things we go through are the best things to happen to some. There seems to always be a scale holding the balance of the two things in this thing we call life. Sometimes the good outweighs the bad, and other times not. That's just the way it is, and anyone who has been around for a while knows that. I don't want to act like it was so bad for me and all that I've been through. I don't want to pretend as if what happened was anyone's fault. I take full responsibility for all the things I did and who I am. That being said, I would have to state that there are factors out of my control. Certain things do happen that can be a result of someone else or just circumstantial mishaps. Either way, I'm lucky to have escaped my old life alive and a free man. I was a normal kid, and somehow I was special. I'm not sure why, but it always seemed I was. I couldn't tell you how or why I was different. I was just born with this genetic strand making me this person, I guess. The other theory is that my soul is such a unique imprint that I was separated from normality. I see everyone has their own special facial structure and background. Somehow the amount of souls that can be brought into life in a body is infinite. Still, as many that do, I still think I was special in my own way. I would just do whatever it is I wanted to do. I instantly loved video games, becoming an enthusiast on first contact. I would ride my bike or skateboard when I was a kid. I went through a reading phase when I was 11. I also made some comic books around or before I was 10, signifying to my adult self that I was naturally born a creative mind. Yet I'm like so many with their natural interests. I suppose I was a very mediocre kid in a crazy world. I was born out in California, and while I was there, I enjoyed the outdoors. Although my family moved when I was around 9, so my early childhood was spent there. As my brain developed into my teen years, so did my interests. Life happened, and I was constantly getting in trouble with the law. I would steal partly because as a teen, I wasn't given much money. Although I suppose it's just another thing to use as an excuse. I found an excuse everywhere for anything whenever I wanted. I was never the suspect, but always on the move and grind. I just wanted to smoke pot and have a good girlfriend. I had a ton of inward conflict and family hardships that impacted me as a person, although it would take a serious contemplation. I did have gifts of positivity. I had people that did some bad things, but also helped me in life. My family is what I'm referring to, which I'm currently dodging the subject. Nonetheless, what was about to happen to me as I approached adulthood had little to do with them. I can't say that my parents are to blame for the disease I had to endure. I had some paranoia when I was a teen, but it never was anything that made me feel incoherent. Apart from my stubbornness and youthful, rebellious nature, which heavily influenced my decisions. Most of this is normal for people growing up, although how many went into juvenile hall? How many were acting out because of their situation at home or whatever was fueling the fire? Most of it seems normal, but individualized through a chain of events. I did some experimental drug adventures, which turned sour. It seems like drugs can really change how a person perceives the world. And that instant they can become a different person because of taking in a substance, because of thinking of it positively. I believe I would have been better off never of doing them, even though I've witnessed people glorify their excessive drug use in almost delusional sense, which it is actually a delusional sense, as if they were having a good time when they could have been having one without them. The mere suggestive thought that they were getting such excitement came from the culture that spawned, the drug culture that has been around for however long, mutating and morphing them into what we know and see today. At a certain point, everything seemed to sort of fade and transition into very dark times. From very extreme delusional paranoia to the bottomless pit of depression. I think I've been through some of the worst states of mind and suffering and mental illness. It's as if I just go through phases out of my control. These patterns I started to realize were either genetic, devilish witchcraft, or my own choice. I found out that the anxiety I would experience was all in my head. If I could be completely fine at home and then go walk around the mall and have a panic attack, then obviously I was feeding this fire of fear. I was the one destroying myself also to an extent. Like I said, there are things to blame, but some was out of my control. So who in their right mind would go through such horrendous suffering on purpose? Would someone do this for their own entertainment and sake of boredom? Is it possible that people naturally get involved in such extreme delusional thought to be entertained? This is one theory I developed after I basically realized it was genetic or scientifically a mystery. Not even the experts could tell me why I was suffering from such mind states. They could speculate, but it never was factual, and there were just these modern techniques and medication distribution. They hand out all those pills like candy for whatever you think you're suffering with. Some of them seem to just jump the gun so fast it's not an accurate process. They seem to just get told one thing and procedurally prescribe this substance, which can be quite seriously fatal. Those drugs can kill people who aren't in such a stable mind frame to evaluate how it's affecting them. Their rights as an adult and that responsibility is conflicted with their ability to be coherent. They're responsible for their life, and they would be committed if considered a threat. Yet they're out there like stray dogs, just feeding and surviving, popping pills to sleep at night so they don't go out the deep end again. It can be really a big high-risk situation with dangerous predicaments. So anyways, I found the psychiatry industry to very dark and dissatisfying. There weren't ever foolproof solutions to becoming healthy again. The medication situation just seemed like a scandal for doctors to coax people in for sales. They need business for their operation to function and gain profits, so they need messed up people to make a living. I also formed another quite bizarre theory with that process. I came up with a ton of bizarre theories and speculations on life. Sometimes I think my mind was in this natural thinking process of information where my brain was developing, and it was a very intense transformation. Then once I reached certain milestones in my philosophy, it seemed to simmer, like a boiling pot of water that keeps spewing out water everywhere until the burner is turned down. That's what my brain was like when it was going in several different directions. I thought about so much and processed so many angles of existence. I'm lucky that I didn't kill anyone accidentally or in a pure rage. There are several situations where I was incredibly lucky to have remained alive. It's hard to control someone that becomes so unpredictable. I started to notice my habits in this phase I would put myself through. All the same things were happening, and I was always in this loop of self-destruction. I never really had a true love or much of anything in that aspect. Just my thoughts and a unique point of view, I suppose. When you're racing so fast in your mind, it can be hard to decide what you want to feel. That's when your life can be put at risk, especially if your attention span seems to drift off from any rational thought. When I really started to decipher logically what I was thinking, I couldn't find much sense to what I was doing. There weren't any good reasons to keep destroying everything like I did time and time again. Of course, other people have their own wreckage they leave behind. I learned to avoid those situations eventually. They're going through what I did in their own way sometimes. They are growing up and making mistakes, so why would I want to be part of their mistake? It's a waste of time that is best left avoided, although I would help if I could. Some people have a path of their own most of the time. So there were a few drug experiences where I was spun out. It really was this very intense mind alteration. I learned that those addictions were deadly and could be seriously harmful. Even though people decided to use whatever they want for recreation, it just became unnecessary to do drugs, let alone be in the dangerous drug world. There are very sick and ugly people in that world. I suppose there are some very sick and ugly sober people out there as well. That's the thing, is people start falling into this concept and idea of being cool. They want to be liked, and we all naturally require attention psychologically. Healthy people need love and attention. It's just the way it is. Yet sometimes that isn't enough for some. Yet it seems there are all sorts of traps people can fall into if they're not careful. That pit of depression can be very severe and serious. It can take years to escape its clutches if you can even manage to. even then it seems to linger and try to work its way back in. I guess maybe I was a nice person the whole entire time, even though I didn't think so. It wasn't that I couldn't be evil because I could. I think I reconciled in between defining and letting something be nothing at all. I guess maybe it was maturity or logic, which led me to think how I do. I've been told I'm a nice person and I understand honor and equality, yet the whole world always seems to be crazy to one extreme or another. I guess I find peace in my own way. There are people who have been through mental illness but have never been to an institution. I've been in the psych ward several times and the people are horrific. There's just so much hopelessness and complete craziness. It gets so dark and there are so many delusional minds around you. They could be thinking several psychotic things for whatever reason. People are talking to themselves and most seem to be suicidal. There were these older people who were suffering from dementia. Of course, schizophrenia can show similar symptoms to that of dementia, but can target more young people. You just get spun out of what is real and lose the ability to be stable and logical. You can't really make rational decisions when you're off in this dreamland. My personal downfall in my mentality was caused by some obvious reasons and some mysterious. They say that mental illness can be genetic or caused by childhood trauma. There are people that have such a terrible way of perceiving childhood abuse because it has so many extremes. There are many forms of abuse and neglect, and really when you get older it seems like the choices are on the table. No matter what a person has went through, there isn't any excuse to not get help. The situation can just be quite ugly. I'm not exactly an expert on the condition of the human mind, yet through what I've learned just by suffering so much, I came to my own understanding. Most people who suffer, like me, don't reach such understandings where they find real strength. They just spin out in this loop and never discover themselves. Yet it's a very difficult thing to judge people with disabilities. I just theorize different causes and effects in this catastrophe of insanity. Yet I can't just decide I'm weak and subjected to fail in life. I can't accept that my current condition causes me to be a failure. I think that if you can reach absolute clarity, then you can decide. I learned that I needed to use and take advantage of any love and positivity. I became very careless, and I was homeless several times. I was just out there trying drugs and hanging out with lowlifes. That's not to say that maybe later in life they would change in life. Yet I was a lowlife, and those people were lowlives. You never really know how low a person will go until you witness savagery and betrayal firsthand. Until you've seen how ruthless and devoted to their own cycle of rage they are, you can't really decide it's time to save yourself and live, let live. The ironic thing about love is it can be so substantially much more deceptive and damaging compared to hatred. When you learn that love is just this word and this feeling, but a psychological mind game. Love is powerful, but it can be a weapon of absolute torment, especially the way it's used in such devious acts of selfishness. There are a ton of ways to perceive certain subjects and the truths I found in life. Some of my points might prove to be arguable or possibly flawed. Yet that's where the path reaches such paradoxes of thought that I find hard to explain. Where we invented this language in our history and these symbols of communication that have been granted such amazing power. Words can kill or save a person's life depending on the situation. I was able to resolve from all these conclusions and patterns of purgatory, the isolation and self-proclaimed individualized systems of analyzations which can antagonize the mind and heart, the unescapable philosophy which we use to pick and pry at anything for any reason, the culprit which is the arsonist which burned down our happiness, rests in the influence of ourselves. We are the criminals to our own laws of emotion and balance. So all in all, even though I must live with these dark eyes and reasons nothing ever makes complete sense. I just kind of evaluate other people and how stupid they are, how powerless to their own human disease they are, but how much control they give themselves. I can have a heart, but also I'm not obligated to cater to someone's ego. That's what a lot of people like to get off on, or whatever. They want you to be a victim to their own greatness and be the best. They want to be your reason in face of your defeat. The people become very sickening in their intentions. Besides all that, I always lead myself into that reason to be crazy. I need a theory or way of thinking to bring myself to a new lie. This is a part of how my mind would practically suffocate and smother its robust desire. All I wanted is to be healthy and feel good in my life. Yet the suffering and disease seems to be unpreventable. I just run right back to theorize the reasons why and dwell in it again. Like so many, the cycle and processes are the same. I went to what they called juvenile hall for the first time when I was about 10 years young. I went out in the middle of the night and stole things out of cars. I wouldn't break the windows, but just check if they were open. Then ransack the vehicle, throwing things around and taking anything of value. This was after I moved from California to South Dakota. I always had the talent of getting into trouble. I used to get in fights back in Cali, but also had fun. I can't even say I was acting out rather than just being a kid, doing things for the thrill and acting on impulse. I did eventually realize I was just committing the same crimes and getting the same results. I never really thought of everything too much. I never really thought everything through too much. I was kind of just blind to what was happening all those years with myself. I don't know if I had a choice, considering I was so young and just fluid with what I felt. I just did what I did and suffered from the consequences. I grew up differently than some of those stuck-up or jock-type kids. I'm sure their parents at least had brains to teach them about college. At least they probably got an allowance or something. Some of them had parents that bought them cars and all that. I didn't have any of that and had very little from my parents. I can't sit here and blame them, for they had hardships as well. Their problems and their inability to put them in focus and change their life affected me. How as a young minor supposed to have power over being homeless? That wasn't my fault at all, and they were to blame for that. I don't like to make it too terrible, considering I did get some love, even though it seems it was mostly neglect. I don't like to minimize either, and there are all kinds of mistakes people make. Some people are just horrible at raising kids, and they don't teach them and everything. They just kind of let it ride itself out as if they don't care. I don't have to pretend or fake what has happened. I don't have to drown in self-pity or deny the very real situation that happened to me. I also don't need to rationalize and state how it wasn't so bad in a positive mind shift. I just let it be what it is and see some of the problems I have are a result of my past. That it all kind of turned into a mess, but had to be put to an end. So in ways I was fortunate, in ways I was worse off than other people. I think it's average you have a family that isn't exceptionally rich or completely in tune with raising kids. So at this point, there is nobody to blame for the way I am and all the things I feel. There are only solutions, and it almost seems natural or genetically imprinted inside me to be like this. So I just live on and try to stay away from terrible situations and human beings. I was in and out of the juvenile detention center, which basically was kid jail. Sometimes I went in for theft, and sometimes it was for smoking pot. I think I just went in for a fight or two. I went in for a fight or two. I was a street thief without a future or knowledge to live as a mature adult. I didn't know I was going to have to provide in the long term. I wasn't really thinking about anything but a bag of weed to smoke on for the night. I just loved to smoke pot, but never had any money to smoke as much as I wanted. Part of the reason why I smoke pot and cigarettes is such a young age where my influences, again, is back to the blame game, and my family is the go-to for that. Yet, at this point, with all things contemplated and considered, it's up to me to choose my future. Still, I would have been better off with a nice family and bright future. Not that I don't have one, but still, I got in trouble and I wasn't interested in school. I didn't care for schooling or anything they were trying to force me into. It wasn't even that I couldn't excel or be a strong intellectual youth as much as I just wasn't into it. I wanted to listen to music and party. I just didn't realize I was going to have to work something out eventually, that the teen dream seems to disappear as fast as it came about. I just got tired of making dumb choices and being left out on my own. I went homeless as an adult several times, and I had to learn the hard way. Trust me, the hard way on those streets isn't fun. I've been terrified from the life I lived, and so far from whatever normal is, it always seemed like death was around every corner. I got so depressed many times, and I had a few friends. Yet I got so low and spun out I attempted suicide at one point. I don't even know what I was thinking at that point. I was so far into darkness and lost. I was on medications and got out of the hospital for the first time when I actually did make an attempt on my life. I'm not sure if the medications made me more suicidal or drove me to that point. Still, that was probably the lowest point of my life. I actually broke down my friend's door when he wasn't home and robbed him. The friend I met through a job, and I was renting out a room in his place. He kicked me out because I was acting really crazy, and that's when I ended up in the hospital. When you betray your friends, you really don't have much left. I used to steal from my family members. It would make them mad. I carried out my bad habit of stealing everything onto adulthood and ended up in jail a few times. I was stealing stuff out of cars and selling it at pawn shops and such. At one point, I stole a gun out of a car and got pulled over for reckless driving. I got charged with grand theft, but they took me to the hospital rather than jail. This is because I was having such an extreme mental breakdown, or whatever it's called. I was basically psychotic and delusional to the point of not being able to function. I pled not guilty by reason of insanity and got off the hook on that charge. I've had people tell me stories of themselves or try to say that they're crazy, yet I don't think they really experienced that, the kind of crazy I did. There are people in the loony bin and the counseling offices that are just gone. Some of them talk to themselves, or they have this look like they're just being turned into a zombie from meds. It really turns into a very sad situation when you realize all those people will never be able to live a normal life. Or most of them. I just never wanted to be stuck like that. So I went to the loony bin about 3 times, and I learned the process of how they evaluated people. They analyze what you say and how you're acting. Then they make a decision if you're able to return to the free world based on if you're coherent enough. It's kind of like a person in prison getting out on parole or something. At least for me, it turned into that type of scenario. What do people in prison say to the parole board? No matter if they're actually changed or not, if they're smart enough, they'll tell them what they want to hear. It doesn't take rocket science to know what to say. What I ultimately realized was that those doctors were just choosing what condition I was in. When I really started to get stable and actually live in reality, I found out I was deciding. I was choosing what to label myself with or what to make myself out to be. Once I found out that the anxiety was all in my head, it seemed everything else was too. I was basically psyching myself out. I could just get in a very intense state of mind and drift off. This would prevent me from learning. This curse I was dealing with wasted so much of my time where I could have been enjoying life or developing skills. Part of my delusional mindset came from the theories of magic. I would start to think that magic is real. I'm talking like witchcraft and God and all that stuff. I started to think that I was in a conspiracy and people controlled others with magic. The government controlled people with magic, and so did famous people. I would obsess over the devil and several different supernatural things. At one point, I thought I was the Antichrist, which then I would turn around and think I was an angel. It was just because it was just this really bizarre shift in my beliefs. I thought that if I could use this magic, I could become famous. I was just all around out there. I mean, there are a ton of religions and cults which have beliefs in magic. They might have rituals or some crazy belief in God or whatever. When I was going completely nuts, I sort of formed my own theory. Which, looking back, the logic didn't really make much sense. When a person becomes that psychotic and pumped up in this psychosis, it's quite extreme. It really becomes an intense and extreme mind state. I would forget things very quickly and was unable to maintain my daily life. All this happened sort of out of my control, and I still don't have an answer as to why. I had this bad acid trip when I was 17 years old, and it gave me something to blame my mental illness on. I found tons of reasons to blame my unfortunate unmanageability on. It was always because of my parents, or luck was a suspect. There's always this person or thing for me to blame. That led to me finding a center in all of it. The serious contemplation of everything was necessary for me to overcome and evolve, for me to adapt and persevere through this serious situation. The doctors and psychiatrists can only do so much before I have to independently take control. Like, I had to take control, and I needed to stop finding excuses or making it so extreme. I would just take some simple things like religion and totally blow it out of proportion in every which way. I would just be a cultic psycho to the supernatural theories I found in life. Aliens, spirits, magic, and Satan were all popular subjects for my insane behaviors. These were just part of the subject matter I would spin out into and have prophetic, delusionary visions. I have no idea how my mind would go into such places. It's almost as if maybe my mind wasn't playing tricks on me. Maybe the devil was constantly trying to kill me with lies, and I got what I deserved. What's more worse of a punishment than banishment to insanity, to lose any chance of normality? So there's another theory I developed, and the conclusion of what happened, as if something was trying to kill me for some reason. Maybe it's what I had to offer the world. Maybe I did have some kind of gift that the devil wanted to snuff out of this life. Either way, it's just another theory to my own destruction and absence of mind. Another path for me to indulge in and get lost in. I just had enough of making up theories, almost like I was that desperate to have a purpose. So I assumed a purpose amongst bizarre prophecies from the Bible or elsewhere. This is part 2, and it's called The Person on the Inside. I wasn't at all intending for this book to be a story of religious faith and strength, where the grace of God led me to safety and sanity. I wasn't at all trying to make this a typical story of how I saw the light of Jesus and it saved me. I feel like maybe God had a part in my life, and maybe he did direct all my miracles. Yet God seemed to be just another theory where the magic I find makes other people God. So God isn't God, but he's just other people using God magic. Since people want to get all supernatural with the God stuff, but they don't take it to my extreme, that's where other people don't understand me, and it can be hard to explain what I see. It's not that I'm evil, or when I blaspheme, that I'm actually committing such sin. I'm not living a lie of anything of sorts. I have my own theories and ways of understanding God and people. I fully submit to the concept of God, and hopefully I can live pure and find love every day. I don't want for myself to find love and be safe, whether it be by God or just because I'm smart enough to make the right choices. I just got sick of other people playing God and always having some kind of simplistic God advice for me. What people suggest in anything What people suggest isn't anything new to me, and I found my own peace. On another note, I don't wish to cause any controversy by stating certain opinions on religion. It's not my intention to make this book conflictual to the reader, but more a relaxing read. One where they might find something relatable, useful, or intuitive for them to use. I guess really it will be whatever it is to the reader. So I was just conflicted and trapped in mental illness as many others. So I was just as conflicted and trapped in mental illness as so many others were. I seen the whole deal being brought to me every time I woke up. Mental illness ruined my life, and I can't say that it's my fault. I don't think people really understand that. When a person has social difficulties, it can be because of mental illness. There are a lot of people with a heart out there, and also a ton of selfish imbeciles. So for those that do understand what is going on in the world of mental illness, this is how it is. People that suffer can be in a very bizarre state of mind, even if they're not diagnosed. Not everyone that is mentally ill is stupid or bound to do something unpredictable, but some are. I don't see myself as mentally ill anymore, and I don't like to subject myself to it. I really get sick of people's concern for me or assumptions of weakness. I did feel labeled a lot from others. I just couldn't be that person anymore, and I never will be again. It took a while, but I did seem to snap myself out of it. Wish I never went through any of it, really, but I did. The whole ordeal is that people can get trapped in a never-ending cycle in themselves. They can believe a multitude of different things that have a delusional sense of reality. Reality can become very individualized and closed in to a single person. They can form ideals or perspectives in a unique faction. There is a difference between an opinion, belief, and a delusion. I think that seeing the significance of your belief or opinion and its relevance separates them. Yet the significance of a belief or opinion can have a very powerful potential. I have actually convinced other people of my delusional theories before, and they believe me. I actually found out that diagnosis to be a shared delusion, as they called it. Although I'm not licensed, I'm not a licensed doctor to state that. Still, I've learned a lot and could maybe have a partial unofficial degree. Nonetheless, I also discovered a ton of other concepts to the reasons I was so lost. With this shared delusion effect, I found it to be influence. People are influenced to believe things, and one could say an opinion that they're all in a shared delusion, yet the person with the opinion can be in a shared delusion. So it can kind of create this paradox in itself. I don't have to be subjected to the opinion of modern mental health psychiatry. I don't have to believe I'm mentally ill or insane. I can just be myself, and I would be if I never went through what I did. Anyways, I guess what I went through made me who I am today. Still, I'm quite aware of how people perceive such crazy people, especially the intellectual community at large. Yet another discovery I found out on my own. There is just a lot of things I came to understand about myself and the world around me. I've seen crazy people do insane things and witness their endless behaviors. I was around schizophrenic people a lot, and I was a part of this counseling type community building. They would serve lunch there, and they had this leisure room that was open for part of the day. I was living at what they called a transitional living facility for close to 2 years. It's a place where people go when they have mental illness and it's unmanageable. So they try to teach them how to live. They assign chores and have a curfew and passes all that. I didn't really have anywhere else to go, so I ended up there. I went through so much insanity, and I couldn't exactly just get a job and get my own place. It's hard to accept and admit when mental illness is taking complete control of your life. It's even harder to gain stability, and even then, nothing is the same. I've always been pretty open about everything, and maybe I shouldn't have, since disabilities like mine are associated with murderers and such. So I was probably better off just going back to work as soon as possible and burying the past. Yet, I'm not much for living lies or telling them, although I've told my fair share like so many others. Somewhere along the lines, things started to click, but not before I started drinking regularly, which did contribute to my overall condition, making everything worse. I don't even want to say I've had enough of the bad decisions in my life. I always seem to have found my way back to safety, even though I messed everything up. So I keep that in mind, and even now I still mess things up. I can rant online, and it's like I'm ruining my social life. It seems I become some kind of outcast to the outside world in ways. I don't want to think I'm labeled and judged, but still, I know I am. I know that I'm being disrespected behind my back. So I guess all of that is another paranoid delusion, I suppose, but maybe it's not so fake. Besides that, I can control what people think of me, and that's their trip if they want to judge me for things I say, even though they seem to be just words I say that could be directed at them. Like I'm socially attacking them as if they're some kind of vulnerable child. I guess people just get offended easily with the mention of things that conflict with them. I like to accept the truth and joke around about very dark things. I have sort of a sick and twisted sense of humor, but a lot of people do too. So I guess it's not so dark or bad after all. I see myself trying to decide if I'm a good person or not, and I know I'm decent. I can just take things a little too far and get very intense sometimes, which is why I get so amped up and crazy, or at least it's one of the reasons. Still, I learned a lot about myself, and when I take a look around, I'm not the only one. I'm never the only last one, but still there are people who found themselves, who have gained a genuine, legit understanding of themselves and the world around them. There are these mistakes we make when we think of ourselves. We can judge ourselves so harshly or assume this place in society where we are lesser than those who are rich or talented. There's a certain low that I think not everyone will go through, just like there's a certain high. That high life seems to be granted to fewer than the low life. I suppose it's a sort of mixture in itself, as there is a multitude of people experiencing life in different ways at any given moment. We're all just kind of on our own thought path and destiny. There's this whole self-fulfilled prophecy and destiny concept I found interesting, almost as if my reality was just self-fulfilled, until I realized that it wasn't. Then it seemed to set sail on a new course, one which so many have found before me in their own special way. So in that realization that not even the self-fulfilled destiny that came in result to realizing it was self-fulfilled, that it seemed like the psychological influence was ultimately leading me in this fate. There are just a ton of aspects concerning the choices we make and the capabilities of our potential as humans. Understanding this is one of the reasons that caused me to be a writer. The depression seemed to be a choice, as well as just another illogical thought concept. Just a thought pattern I trained myself to bask in. Of course, addictions to substances make all of this worse. I have reasons to be crazy and be depressed. I have every reason that could exist to be anything I want or don't want. It can take a lot of will to be able to stop this cycle, though, to actually break away from the typical and casual lifestyle thoughts. Somehow, the evolution of our own thoughts seem to be overlooked by ourselves. This future is happening every second, and I'm creating my own. The past doesn't have to repeat itself, and the future doesn't have to be so grim. The darkness doesn't have to take control of everything and even really be there at all. The more I don't pay attention, the more things seem to just fade out the same way they were discovered. How I learned everything I know and came to understand seems to be the creator of negativity. If I never understood wrong or right, I would never decide that I was wrong. If I never if I never know how much I suffered or felt good, I would never know that I did suffer. Plus, anything in my own individual experience is just that. It seems to be just this isolated pain that only I endure inside myself. On the outside, it's kind of not real in the sense that no one else feels it. They might feel their own, but they don't feel or see what I do. Part 3. People cry and the world keeps turning. I have thought so much on how people care and why they do what they do, their background, and the natural talents they seem to have. How they somehow are able to be a criminal or a police officer. The influences that they're interested in and everything in between. I suppose that's some kind of scientific study in itself, the social science or whatever that creates different people. Still, it seems like the maturity of a person can go a long way. The choices they make can either make or break their lives, whether they have wealth, health, and people that love them. Some people seem to like the abuse and dark lifestyle, just like some are fans of horror and some are not. I started to think of religious people as fans of a religion rather than some holder of faith. Their indifference is only distinguished by their own definitions of what everything is. Some will understand what I just stated, and some won't. I don't like to label people stupid or idiotic, yet their inability to see what is happening to themselves is just so limited. I ask myself all the time why it is that people became so narrow to what they process. They want to believe what they believe, and they don't want someone to ruin them. They're stuck in this idea that others will strip them of their dignity and the truths they find. So many people want to act and think they're smart, but how many can pass a college exam? Were they just average and stupid to begin with part of their stupidity being that they think they're smart? I guess you can decide for yourself. It's in our nature to pursue wealth and greatness to impress the opposite sex. We always have the approach of dominance in our genetic makeup, where our success means we can be a provider and supreme alpha creature. This is where it almost just reaches a point of stagnant animalistic savagery. Our intellectual attributes seem to be a safety net catching our acceptance of being just idiotic mortals, with brains only capable of so much comprehension and potential. So anyways, all these things are just things I came to understand about life. I always thought I was thinking something new or original in the past when I was young. Then I came face to face with the fact that there are so many people just like me, that they think and act the same way in everything. I couldn't even be special with my mental illness. Being disabled and poor because of it is just one of the worst things to go through with the opportunities I had. Even though I'm probably limited by my own realistic intellectual capability. How far would I even be able to go as a successor in all reality? That's the question I wanted to challenge and uphold. From being a loser, insane, homeless, to being so low, I felt I lost all dignity. I felt my humanity was stripped and my right to be a man was taken away. In certain ways it was when I was put in jail or the mental hospital. I just wanted to be someone great and who was worthy. This came from being so low. I just wanted to accomplish something or do something for the world. This book is the result of many years of myself being so low and unwanted. I have felt and thought so many different things, it can just be overwhelming. I have to do something to keep busy and be able to express myself. If I don't, then things can just get boring and it's like I'm not able to be myself. I've thought my share of good as well as my share of bad, the marvelous with the terrible, and many things in between. Being a writer seemed to fit me to dispel the many things I thought about. Having a sort of ability to think so deeply and understand things others don't or think they do. I gained a sort of scientific perspective to the things people would do. When I studied psychology and philosophy, I started to see how much of a lie I was living. I would base feelings off of other people or things out of my control. It seems like natural human emotion can be difficult to conquer or overcome. Some things in life come easily to others, and some just aren't taught to them about certain things. That, or they just reject modern human understanding completely or adversely. Again, they have to be right, and when they get so opinionated, there isn't much room to branch out to other understandings. They don't like to dive too deep into philosophy of their beliefs because they can't or just don't. They settle with the mediocre, simplistic wisdom they find. That's what carries them through life, but their own brain could carry them a lot further if they utilize it correctly. Still, witnessing extremism isn't hard to do. It's all around us in many forms with many results. Some can be good when the extreme belief is to preserve life or help others. Then the minimalist way of life is made into this selfish, ignorant lack of contribution to the extremist cause. There's only so much people can do to help others before they have to help themselves. It's just in some of our nature to be who we are, even when that's a criminal or selfish person. Can't really blame a selfish person who is just trying to survive and make a path to feed themselves. Avoidance of fatality seems to be my main purpose in life, and I've evaluated the risks. From health to car accidents and everything else. The less you risk yourself, the less chance you have to die. People can get so enthusiastic, they lose that sense to be selfish for their own survival. When accidents happen, though, they are by chance. They are statistically inevitable, but minimized by the effort of experts. Yet the knowledge and capabilities of such experts only stretches so far. They can't save everyone from their bitter ends. The world is just full of scary and unlucky scenarios. Sometimes just when you think everything is going smoothly, something bad happens. Other times you assume the worst of yourself or others, but it is quite the opposite. Even though we fail to see how much love there is out there, doesn't mean it's not there. Seeing past oneself can be difficult, but is actually logical in many ways. Being of service to your fellow man is the most honorable and smart way to live. That is the best way to gain a purpose for yourself in whichever way you do. So many people are busy being selfish and assuming all is about them that they can't be selfless. They're so worried or focused on fulfilling this dominance of life that they can lose sight. Really, it's not all about the money, but money does save lives. Money can grant life or take it away. Still, greed is what makes people so crazy, but also makes them strive to be better. You don't see homeless people with significant others wearing expensive clothes with a Ferrari for a reason. You never see some dirty, stinky guy get out of a Lamborghini and kiss a supermodel for a reason. The natural purpose to satisfy the opposite sex is what pumps oil into our cars. Equality is such a lost cause, and the earth is on a progression of natural societal revolutions. We move on to the next phase of being fine with the differences of our fellow man, and it's just a process. We eat animals, but frown so much on animal cruelty and human suffering. Violence is a part of survival, and what keeps our hearts beating every second of the day. The kind and the sensitive seem to overlook such realities in our nature. I guess really my points seem to fall apart like they did in my delusional mind frame. Everything to me seems to be a paradox or contradiction. You can chase that high all you want, but if you die, it's the addiction's fault. I think some people just need to be beaten senseless and told to stop. Yet what help is there in cruelty and abuse, when most of the time they're just going to do what they're going to do anyways? Some, regardless of what others say, a true rebel will sneak their way in how they want. They will do whatever it is they want, and they can be bad in a free world. Movies seem to depict violence and different forms of life for entertainment. It's obviously dramatized and artistically drawn out, yet it seems like people like to apply the certain styles or acts to themselves. That's all in this sensational upbringing of popularity and trends. With the progression of communication and our speaking abilities, this is what it has turned into. Really, though, we have all these words to describe us as elements and materials. On the outside, without a human perspective, we would be just this flesh without words or anything to say what it is. So who's to say this life is anything but nothing to begin with? Anyways, I've been through some dark times and situations. I think what I've been through, things that don't seem so bad now that I'm typing it all out. I guess maybe that's because it was bad and now it's not so bad. I'm not so lost and just floating out there in space. I was, however, at high risk mentally to do something regrettable and unforgivable. People make mistakes, and I'm one of the lucky ones without a life sentence or something like that. I still have both arms and legs with a functional brain. For that I am forever grateful and indisputably fortunate to have. Depression can really set in when you become so low and crazy. I had to make that transition to adulthood, and it's as if my parents didn't teach me what I needed to know. I had to start my adult life mentally ill without the proper tools to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I like to think I'm above the teachings of other people and their ways of life, yet when it comes to basic rules and self-discipline, I had little to none. You could say I was immature, or you could say it's just the way it turned out. Either way, it was probably a tougher road than most, but maybe an easier road to some as well. I always wanted love and to find love, yet it really never came, and something strange happened. It was as if I had a life experience so different from the norm that I was living things out later in life. There are a lot of people who go through high school, love, and all that. I don't know how accurate this is, but I think maybe I went through those motions years after, when the situations of love was actually introduced to me. Then again, maybe it was just this normal process of love people go through no matter the age. This is part 4. The Land of Dreamers. I think that since I started to get better, I began to live out some dreams. I always had dreams of being a singer or writer. I used to play guitar and make music beats when I was 15. I started writing, got inspired by poetry and other things. I really wanted everything and thought I could achieve it. Yet I feel like it just didn't work out, and I didn't have the right support, let alone the individual financial support to live when I was 18. Then depending on who you are, I guess you realize how many people there are pursuing dreams. How many people out there are just creating this world of competition for one another with their passions. It can be hard to get your foot in the door, but I feel like not everyone puts in the work or has the talent. Another thing is that I think that there are a lot of people trying different things. There aren't a lot of people trying different things. They tend to have one major passion and other minor ones, so they just work and focus on mastering one thing. The amount of things a person can master if they're willing to put forth the time can be a lot. I'm not sure there are a lot of talented, famous names out there with secret talents or skills they developed. It seems most people that actually get that type of exposure have good life ethics. Still, it seems they have the gift in one area or another. Having such acclamation in several skill sets is hard to come by. Things take time to master and get to the state where they are works of fame. Depending on the explosion the person has, whether it be young or reaped over years of practice. I suppose popularity is a talent in itself, the ability to convince people they are the real deal. The energy they put out is somehow put out there to gain attraction or not. So, are there actual technicalities of how we portray ourselves to control such popularity? Is it just as simple as fitting the part and you're granted luck? So there are tons of things I've thought about, and a few I pursued up to this point. I love trying new things and being artistic in my nature. I'm not doing it for pay or anything, but because I love expressing myself. the therapeutic technique can be helpful to the trauma I've experienced. I really don't like to make it into a huge ordeal and act as a victim, though. I just casually work on different arts, including writing. There is more to people than we really can see, no matter who they are. They can have an entire world inside of them, and only they get to experience it firsthand. So the talents and gifts they have are really special in the way that only they have that. It seems like not having a gift can be a gift. At times, the gifts people carry can be a curse, especially in fame. So there is a fence, and it creates two sides to the grass. So I stopped putting so much faith into other people and really started to be independent. From the doctors and everyone else with their bad advice, I really just found out that I was going to decide for myself and do what I wanted regardless. Other people seemed to be more and more less valuable to me and my plans. I couldn't help them to an extent and never really wanted to work on some project, and they never really wanted to work on some project or something. Some of them were artists and a lot weren't. Most were just pot-smoking friends that I had nothing in common with. Holding on to old friendships was just a burden. It's not my fault I'm trying to flourish and they're just a burnout. Of course, not all people who smoke weed are burnouts, but still, there are people who don't do any drugs and are still burnouts. I see it as people just wasting their life and their time they're given. They might just be ungrateful or unable to see that they're just falling into stupid habits. I don't want a part of those ways of life with people trying to act cool. They're just focused on being hardcore or whatever they can see, whatever, and they can't see past it. They're just locked into place and they get taken advantage of and brainwashed. People make music and movies and people get brainwashed by that culture. I just don't want to hang around stupid people who are so sure they're having a good time when really they're just being an idiot handing alcohol companies their money to decrease oxygen in their brain. Just handing over their money to drug dealers or whatever their pleasure is. I guess it's the value of money when all of your needs are met. Entertainment, enjoyment, and luxury fill in where our true purpose should be. The luxury to feel good with substances given to the illusion of mind alteration. I don't really have to have an opinion on anything or really be set in any one belief. I can turn my back on whatever I want at any time. I just have thoughts that spell out all over the never-ending processes of life and all of the things in it, where I can just test the boundaries and challenge anything I want. I've been through enough to know how easily people lie and are deceived. They really just do as they please and get what they want to. People just do what they have to in order to survive and live the life they need. Even the life they have isn't enough and they want more. They need their rush and satisfaction in whatever form. The low life exists in the underground caverns of loneliness and despair, where there is no life or light at all. Just a settlement on horrid truths of self and existence, where the answers are unfolded and meant to rot all that observe their presence in full. The corridor of sorrow, which kills many men and plagues many others. The lowest of the low, and the place that might as well be called a living hell. This is where you learn that you needed to survive and do anything it takes to be safe and alright. I was able to break away from that pattern of agony and break the chains that held me in antagonizing prison of myself with constant contemplations of anything that I came into contact with and serious considerations of suicide, fantasies of homicide, and unforgivable rage held by my own self-restraint. There's really nobody to blame when you consider all that has brought about your downfall. When you're able to make choices, you must live with the outcome, no matter how hard you regret it or want it to be someone else's fault. When a person has such mental breakdowns and devastating mental complications, it can take years to mend. The healing process can take a long time, and it may never be completely okay. Still, the pain and suffering we go through is a natural life process, where everyone has their own issues to deal with and face at some point or another. It's just not a good thing to live in denial or be psychologically dramatic. This is why it's hard for me to trust anyone. Still, I guess I trust anyone as much as a person should when there's a lot of crime going on. Compared to the people that don't commit crimes, I guess a crime isn't that much. Still, I don't really like giving people the benefit of the doubt just because I'm a good person or whatever. If you have some unfortunate situation as a grown adult, that's not my fault. There are a lot of homeless people that could get a job and straighten out their lives, but they don't. So why should I have any sympathy for someone that thinks they're so special that they don't have to work? I just have so much that I look at and analyze. Looking around, I see people that are lost or just unable to break away from bad habits. They just get locked in this mediocre life that they learn to accept and they never get out. They just learn what they do and they never break free when they never notice it. Nobody ever brought it to their attention, or they can just never accept it if it was. That stubbornness is just behavior people pick up, and it can turn out to be a mistake. Seriously, I just formed this perspective of seeing people as pathetic and incapable of awareness. They look in the mirror almost every day, yet do they really look at themselves? Their faults and flaws they deny every second to lessen stress and induce more happiness, yet they're never really happy, and maybe that's just because they train themselves to suppress these realities. Why is it such a bad thing to accept and be at one with the truth? Look at the ones with real talent and sacrifice for what skill they excel in. They deserve the honor and respect. Others seem to throw around and demand. Yet, I guess everyone deserves respect, but our lives create an inequality of this. How popularity dictates how much attention of a public acclamation we get. How much does all that attention and respect matter when two people of equal skill don't get the same amount of fame? All the things that I learned about the world and myself gave me a very serious outlook. I knew that I was responsible for my actions, and being mentally drained is never a good way to live. Even living a life with a good lifestyle and best intentions has low points. Points that aren't as bad as others, but it can be worse depending on who you are. I just wanted to get away from anything that was holding me down or was negative. The problem with some people is they don't understand others. They have the tendency to assume that certain things and origins are negative. How a fan of horror might be compared to others might be a bad person. As fanatics, most people are fans of something in one form or another. We have habits. We don't do things that other people might think is bad or wrong, yet there is a certain line of stupidity and responsibility. Not everyone is as it seems at first glance. Not everyone is just a mindless zombie unaware of themselves and the things they do. You never really know what's going on with a person, and even then they might just lie. People are just good at lying to one another to make themselves look better or whatever. Can't really blame them to an extent. It can just be this smart choice. Integrity only goes so far, and I feel like lying does strip a person of honor. Yet when so many are liars, where is the true honor among us? I like to be honest, but I found that being so open can be a bad thing. That lying to get what you want can be considered evil or deceptive. Yet life is short, and when it is so bad that someone tells a lie to get something for the short time they have, I suppose that's kind of a difficult question because nobody really likes being lied to. Still, it's a regular part of life for a lot of us, and we grow used to it. Can almost just expect a new person to lie instead of telling the truth. I've just seen some bad situations and terrible people in action, not to mention all the people scamming on the internet or whatever the way they can. I really have to see through that charm, even if they're not stealing from me directly. They can just steal your time and relaxation. That is if you let them into your mind to pull strings. They can coax you into culture or just make up some way of life for you to live in. I think it's hard to find people that are in tune with everything that's happening around them. Some think they are in tune, but they are so far from seeing clearly, it's ridiculous. Of course, I guess a person could say, I think too much, or I take things too far. Yet they're just thoughts, and I wouldn't ever let someone obstruct my freedom of thought. If you're trying to force someone to believe and think what you do, then that's not genuine. If they decide to agree and share an opinion and result of your influence, That is completely their personal decision that they are responsible for. The point I found to things I think about is just succeeding or striving for passion. Doing something you want to do instead of wasting time in the endless hopelessness the world can provide you. If you choose to accept a certain negativity, then that's your fault. I always hear people saying how disgusting, cruel, and terrible the world is. Sure, I guess that's true to an extent, and some of us out there are just animals. They steal and murder for what they want, yet accepting that reality isn't any way to help change it. Also, violence is a part of our culture and survival as creatures, so it's not really so bad after all. People just make it out to be and feed into the idea. Not to say the world isn't so terrible or great. There's just a lot of different kinds of cultures out there, and it can be hard to decide. Look at all the bad things that happen to individuals on any given day. I'm talking about tragedies or cancer, something like that. Then look at all the people that survived and had what they needed. There are a lot of people that have great lives, even though they might not be able to fully recognize it. Our endings are becoming closer and closer, and some don't care. They don't care how the people of this planet see them, and they have no honor. They don't really understand what honor really is. Even though a lot of time people just joke around and have a good time, we joke around pretty much anything depending on who we are or who we think we are. Still, people in general seem to find humor in anything, so what they honor could conflict with their comedic routine. Yet only they know what honor they really have despite what jokes are made. We can become very sick or demented from our past. It seems like some of us just naturally are psychos, just like some are gifted. Knowing everything I do, it can be hard to accept other people or have a heart. Yet I do find it in to be honorable while still having fun, even if others want to criticize me for anything they want. The blame game can be a vicious cycle. Personally, I just want to be safe and okay, away from the horrific people and places, avoiding the hatred and suffering, and hope I can find happiness. I found it, but also found a lot of other things too. I really do hope the best for people, even if I wouldn't go out of the way to help them. I've helped others, and it just seems like most of the time their problems aren't my fault. I'm not responsible. That doesn't mean I don't care at all. I would be so ugly inside not to care. I see myself and others trying to decide if they're a good person or not. I think maybe it's as simple as if you're asking yourself, then you probably aren't a bad person. If you are a bad person, asking yourself, then maybe that's heading towards some much needed change. Change really isn't a bad thing at all, and it's just a natural life process, even though the bad things are a natural process in their own way. This is part 5, continuum of thoughts. I have points that I make, and there can be challenges to the truth of them. I'm sure everything I'm saying has been picked apart and contemplated by someone or another. I mean, there are tons of intellectuals of the past and present. I can't really just decide I'm above everyone else because I understand what I do. I know what I know because I chose to learn and think. I didn't want to avoid the thoughts, but just become negative in the reality. I didn't want to avoid the thoughts, but just the negatives in reality. Thoughts that are negative can lead to positivity, or it can be signs of more realistic thinking patterns. I guess that depends on the power of the emotion if the thoughts are inflicting harm. Some thoughts have driven me crazy before, many times, trying to decide or figure out the answers in life. It just seems like the huge puzzle that I'm trying to put together. When I place some pieces incorrectly, and I seem to discover much more of the size to the puzzle, as if I'm never even sure what I'm putting together or for how long, yet I continue placing pieces and forming this picture of mine. Where I'm not special is where it's okay to be the person I am. When I'm so special, it seems, I have feelings nobody can understand. I start to have thoughts I don't think anyone can relate to or fully comprehend. I create a unique person who isn't so special because everyone is unique. So this kind of turns into a sort of a paradox, rather, if I want to be special or not. Just knowing that, though, seems to ease the pressure of being myself, though. Makes me feel like I don't have to live up to anything too amazing unless I want to. Expectations can be sort of overrated in themselves anyway, yet I guess expectations fall back into my own self-discipline. They sort of fall in line with each other. What I expect and the limits I have for myself are a result of my discipline. If my expectations of my daily effort towards positivity was either decided by me or influenced by others, then that discipline would be created by myself and others. So everything I'm doing is a choice. This choice and learned behavior. I train myself to be lazy or physically active for my own reasons I choose to hold. With all that considered, I would love to increase my expectations and have discipline. Working, learning, training, and practicing are the best tools to pursue those higher goals for myself. The responsibility of how much effort and thought that is put in is up to me. So in that case, I thought myself into investing into myself every day, because logically I can't just let myself go. I need to let other things go, but never let myself go. That's really a trick to breaking free from the prison of ourselves. We have the power to change history, and we all are a part of it. No matter how many people know our name, we're still ourselves. We still are someone important and significant to the human race. No matter how small of an act a kind gesture is, it can help others see. It can help others see that they're not alone, and there are people willing to help them. That even though it appears to be dark, there are good people out there. I don't know if I would be alive without my friends and family, although the counselors that helped me were a part of my struggle. Those sessions helped me out and helped me see inside myself and define the outside world. Even though I like to blame my parents for things, there were times they were there. So if I was an abandoned orphan, then it might not have been so easy. So for that, I'm grateful. I have some very interesting conversations with others about many different things. As most of us do have casual conversations regularly, I always thought I could see past normal people, how they conducted themselves. I always felt I had this magic that only I had in this strange way. Different people seem to have sort of magical ways about them. My theories of magic, as said before, made me intense and delusional. Still, I had some practices like Reiki, which is a commonly known art. It has to do with the spirit world, and it's used as a healing technique. I'm not even sure how much truth there is to it, and really it's just a scam. You have these people who claim to be psychics, and they heal you in these sessions. They might have you visualize something like that. I was really interested in it and the whole idea of psychics. I've had very surreal experiences where I knew things were going to happen before they did. I could feel that what someone was thinking before they expressed the thoughts. I have had songs pop in my head, and I would hear them on the radio. The mention of something I thought about days before. So I did find out that I had some kind of psychic connection. So it almost led me to believe that magic was real in a certain way. Maybe not to the extent of shooting lightning bolts out of my hand. Still, there's some kind of connection I was making. Seeing things before they happen isn't so difficult to do, yet when they become more random and spontaneous, it can be hard to predict. If it was so easy, then psychics could prevent tragedy before it happened. They would be able to pinpoint all the murders that were happening and stop them. They might even be able to physically know the cure to cancer. Psychically know the cure to cancer. Yet they don't, and it's almost as if there are evil powers that conflict with the good, psychic energies that direct our lives and outcomes. Yet that's just some bizarre theory I came up with. I found out that directing my own outcome is the real control I needed. Since it seemed my power was limited in so many ways, I needed to utilize what power I did have and benefit from it. I needed to take control of my life and be at one with myself, never subjecting myself to the typical normality people get lost in their mediocre lives. how they get lost in accepting their place as an average person without capabilities. I can't be the normal person trapped in limited capabilities. This is because I know the truth of what people are truly capable of. I don't want to limit my potential from someone else's ideals. All the average people weren't connecting to me on my level. I was on some very high goal pursuance and positivity, while others are just down below in the slums of this acceptance, where they are in this prison of laziness and sexual pursuance. Sex is just a natural bodily function that people really just obsess over. They give this idea of sex so much power and significance. They believe all these good sensations, whether it be drugs or sex, are somehow so important, they can really just become these perverts or drug addicts with any real accomplishments. Not to say we all aren't almost slaves to feeling good, enjoying pleasures, tasting good food, and being in the company of good friends. All these good things can keep us alive and well. Yet, feeling good and getting the personal satisfaction from these average things aren't that significant. There's so much more out there than simple pleasures of life. There are feelings we get when we accomplish something or do something amazing. Some just can't see the feeling and satisfaction they get from accomplishing something they put so much hard work into. Where your passion in life that you discovered becomes a fix that goes beyond sex or drugs. Getting true honor and respect is something that genuinely can secure a person's purpose. It can tell them they are important and have reasons to be alive. Sometimes that's all a person needs is a reason to keep living. They always have the reasons, no matter if they're blinded to them or not. All I really want to do is live a good life without too many complications. When things start getting so complex, it can be a hard hole to climb out of. When you put so much thought into one thing or another, it seems you can lose the purpose. What's the point when everything is just so cruel or concluded in a way without room to grow? I see these people who have a perspective on life, but it's so narrow. They just have it all figured out, and there's nothing left for them. You can't teach them anything because they think they know everything. They are all the type. There are all these types of sympathy games being played in one way or another. I don't feel sorry for anyone, even though they go through pain. They might have no arms and legs, and that would be hard. Yet I guess everyone has their own problems and what they consider bad. I think that my points of view can really be contradictory to other opinions. I try to keep positive and as humane as possible in settling on an answer. I always reach a truth about people in this world we live in, how to get through the hard times and be the best I can. I just don't know if others are actually in this moment and realize what's happening around them. They can become so crazy or careless that you can't change them. All the fools keep falling in line to do the stupid things they do, unhealthy choices, and wasting their time in some way or another. I always see people who say, "Don't waste my time." Then I wonder what they consider as a good use of their time. I'm pretty sure they're not a scientist curing a disease or something. Their idea of using their time wisely is by feeling good with jokes and spending with other people as dumb as them. I mean, not to just lay it out like that, but it seems like their lives are a waste of time. Then I start to wonder about my own life being a waste of time. Maybe all we're doing is just killing time, waiting to die, no matter how we spend it. I always see people on the internet sharing these wise quotes, yet somehow it seems to do nothing. They share and share, but they feel the same way. They share and share, but they still feel the same way. Not a single uplifting praise or philosophy can change that. That brings me to question it the same way I usually question things. Is it really even their choice, or is it just genetic? I wish they would feel good and have a nice life, yet it seems suffering is a bully that catches us alone in the darkness. It was so easy to think negatively and feel bad about myself. So shouldn't it be just as easy to think positive thoughts and feel good? At times it is just that easy to deal with the pain. Maybe it's a combination of bad diet and not knowing a special someone. I don't think that's really the case though. As simple as it is, some people have diseases and mental health complications that some don't. Still, it can be a fatal situation as it commonly can be when things go wrong. I think that people are deaf and dumb until they learn to listen. They have to learn to hear what others are saying. Yet they just want to block it out and live in their fantasy or whatever. The false reality of their truth and how they define everything, where they're just right and nobody has the right to tell them otherwise. I suppose trying to say they're wrong and disagreeing is just dramatic. I don't like being told what to think, do, or say. So why do I think anyone should ever think how I think then? I guess I don't think they should, but still, there are others like me. They have deep thoughts, and maybe I'm not so deep compared to some. With the right education at this point, I could dig even deeper with my intellect, yet I do and am interested in what I naturally am. I learn what I want and when I want. Yet my discipline can lack in order to learn more. I know that really there are smart people who understand me. They're out there, and I know smarter people are too. So why does it matter so much that someone else has more than me? Whether it be money, brains, or skill, I'm still a person, even though some like to make others earn their respect, which I don't think I should have to worship others for their accomplishments. I'm a human being just like them, and if they can't respect a commoner, then that's their issue. They can go on striving and believe they're better than everyone else. Still, being better gives them a purpose, just as people like me worshiping them does. Part 6. Who are we really? I realize that respect is due to certain individuals, and not giving it to them isn't reflecting the community. Just because I want to disrespect someone doesn't mean what I say is true or valid. Depending on the public respect and following I have to empower my disrespect. Honestly, I don't ever try to disrespect anyone, but they might see it as me doing it. Still, having a sense of humor is where I have an excuse to disrespect anything. Yet when I'm joking or just ranting, I don't see it as disrespect. I see it as just words coming out that could be funny or mean something. Other than that, they're just words. The power of my words depends on the amount of people that will listen to me. If they believe I'm disrespectful to something personal that they believe, then they could hate me or condemn me right away, which means they're just soft and sensitive. They like to demand things to go their way. They demand people to talk to them how they want, because if not, they get upset. This is because it doesn't go their way and they can't accept it. So I suppose that falls under the whole taking things personally saying. Others can take what I say personally, so I don't want to rant or say offensive things, and I probably shouldn't. The smarter thing to do would be just to be respectful with a clean sense of humor. Follow how everyone else communicates and be who they want me to be. Say the right things and believe in all the mainstream beliefs. Talk and live how they do and all that. I just can't be a different person for other people. I'm myself and I'm willing to change, but I don't see what others see as bad to change it. To me, I don't need to change because I already did. I guess change is another way to say learn your lesson and get your life together. I'm considerate and I know I have what I have to do as a man. I have my priorities in place, even though I seem to have missed out on the good life because of my mental illness. I might not have the success some do at my age, but I'm on my way to something. I just hope and try every day to make the right choice. Hopefully that continues on and I do have some good things happen to me. I reached a conclusion to there being no point to living many times. Then I started to rebel against that point of view. It can get so depressing when a person just gets locked in that mind frame. That way of thinking can be hard to overcome when it seems you can naturally develop it. It's created by yourself, but isn't necessarily true. It's just a shame and waste of life when a person suffers so much. If I could, I would heal everyone and make them happy. Yet I guess it's just a part of this life we live. Being withdrawn can cause issues and make a person live in a false reality. They don't have to be so tough and closed in, but they are. I think in some cases it doesn't even matter how much they talk. They seem to be the same. If a person can find some resolve inside themselves from talking about it, then they probably should. I don't see why people are so afraid of speaking their mind. I guess they could just have social anxiety. I always thought I needed a permanent solution to my problems. There had to be some way to fix everything and be okay. It seems life happens on its own terms and situations come as they do. They come to pass or might have a major effect on us. The best thing to do is just be prepared and know what is possible. Knowing what is possible and being open to that is a positive thing. I just really get tired of the same people and situations. They always seem to think they have some edge or a special way about them. Everyone does, and it's why we're so self-centered and closed in. Of course, people are selfless, but they can be selfish. Being selfless can be something you do for how others think of you. So it can also be a selfish act to be selfless. By that, I mean helping the less fortunate or doing volunteer work. Either if you do it for a good feeling or if you do it for the cause, it seems like no matter what, they get some benefit to themselves. When really, selfish people have this idea of luxury or taste, where they have specifications for their wants and needs. They think money is so great, and really, I have to agree. Money saves lives and can help a person be healthy and do whatever they want. Really, who wants to put a price tag on someone's life? Any decent person wouldn't put a price tag on saving someone else's. Yet, things we do cost money and people need to eat and get health care. I don't like to approach the whole idea of greed as I've seen others do. They say you can have all the money in the world and be unhappy, yet can also be unhappy or happy with nothing, depending on how you see things. Either way, it doesn't really do anyone good to cry around because they don't have what someone else does. Still, if you want to make your own dreams real and make good money, that's up to you. All I have to say in that case is good luck. The world is so competitive and it comes down to the best quality. We are a product and an asset to the company that will hire us. So how do you make yourself a high quality person that will be valued? That is, if you care to make money or not. I think that people don't have a lot could do decent for themselves if they wanted to. A homeless person can get a job, but sometimes they never do. That is unless they decide they had enough. Still, it's their fault. They're homeless unless they have a disability. Then I guess it can be a passable excuse. I mean, really, we all decide our own quality with their own self-esteem and confidence. Still, people can be overconfident or just not really connecting to what they have to offer, not just in the workforce, but all areas of life. Socially, how far can you have an intellectual conversation? Does a person start talking about things you don't know about? If you're always avoiding conversations, then why are you? I suppose some people are so worn out from their life that they just don't want to talk. Still, if you're actually understanding what I'm conveying in this book, then you do have potential. Everyone seems to have a passion or a gift. There couldn't be a famous person without a normal person, so the aspects of what we are capable of seem to be a mystery until we just jump in and find out. We all have our health at best and at worst, emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, confidently, financially, socially. These traits make up who we are in the world. People have or train to have extraordinary skills and balance these aspects of themselves. It can be hard to crawl out of the rubble from a damaging, troublesome past. Sometimes that trouble can be so severe we become mentally scared. The healing and process of establishing while maintaining these areas comes with work. If you are to maintain a healthy self in every way possible, it takes planning and discipline. Our lives can take years of training or recovery from bad experiences. Sometimes we have to realize that just because it has been bad doesn't mean it will be. I go through several different thoughts and means to understand life. I make points repeatedly and replay them in my head. I usually reach a deeper or more elaborate understanding when I make connections between chains of thought. The chains of thought are connected and are welded together by myself. I do repeat thoughts often because I need to think good things on the daily. It's like eating a daily meal or something like that. It's just required for me to keep going. I have been in such terrible states of mind I force myself to say and think good things. Although I think sometimes it can backfire when I just want it to be okay, but it seems to blow up in my face. I feel like I've had some strange things happen to me. I try to make sense of them and take them to an extreme. With all the superstitious theories, I start to think magic is real. So I give into it and practice it, but I go insane sometimes. It's like I'm going into realms I'm not supposed to and messing with the natural order of things. It's really hard to explain, but I feel like there is truth to it. Then, on the other hand, I just think I'm crazy. So if magic is real and people can get fame and fortune with it, then they can seduce women or are able to tap into the world unlike others. They can see the world in a magical sense, where their dreams and how they direct themselves brings them to their fortune. If this were true, then the corruptions of others would bring them fortune. This means that their fortune would cause others misfortune when they give into such selfish mentality for them to make their own way. It disrupts others. All the magic stuff is just kind of overrated and crazy. I'm all for protecting myself from psychos or sick people, yet I decided I don't want to use that power in an evil sense, where I can benefit from it and cause disruptions in reality. This almost sounds like a science fiction story or something that isn't real. I'm not saying it is real, but rather I've just been through it. I've just been through some strange situations with magic. Sometimes what I think is magic is just basically psychological science. Yet I have had some psychic experiences that proved I'm connected to the world differently. I theorize that we're all connected in this psychic, spiritual sense. It's like karma is after those who deserve what they do. The psychic connection connects all of us and makes our destiny. The spirit and angels guide us and the demons torment us. The devil in us can kill us just like the real devil outside. I was a warrior in the spirit world when I was going insane. I challenged demons and maybe it was just this illusion. Still, I've had some experience where it seems like what I was messing with was real. It's really hard to explain, it seems. Yet, I think depending on who I'm around, rather if it's just casual influence in my illusion or magic, I seem to gain their special abilities, whether it's intuition or whatever. I think I just blend into whoever is around me. I started to see that, and magic seemed to die. Magic was overruled by the real physical world, and there were limits. At the end, it just seemed like I was crazy and God would take care of me. That's just where the whole ordeal settled, but there was more thinking afterwards. I continued on to analyze everything and reach new understandings. It almost seemed like when I was theorizing things and getting lost in them, I was being cursed or led into darkness. Like something was trying to corrupt or kill me. Maybe something was trying to test me, or I was testing myself. I still don't have all the answers, but I absolutely know that I want to be safe. I want to be free from the evil and murderous ways of people. It's not that I don't trust people, it's that I don't trust their demons on the inside. Part 7. This is where the smoke settles. This is the last chapter. Part of me feels like I'm just a product of the devil himself and I've fallen to corruption. That I'm just another lost soul being tormented because I don't turn completely to faith. All those thoughts come from the ideals of other people and they don't know what I face. Yet it seems the entire ordeal is a delusionary process in which I'm by far from the first to experience it. I want to succeed, and is that evil to do? Or do I need a devilish plan to do so? Why did I think before that I needed to use witchcraft or selfish forces for my success? Seems like I live in an entirely different world from other people. Yeah, maybe the deception keeps them blinded. Really, it's like this paradox of evil and this more complex part of me that needs to decide if I'm good or bad. You know, I don't think I'm the only one who goes through those thoughts. I really need to be a good person, whatever that is in today's world, with all the disgusting filth in the minds of people. I don't want to be associated with theirs. I want them to go away and leave me alone, and I want out of the trap. I feel like I'm living in a trap or this fantasy land of control, where everything I do is being controlled by someone else and the hatred for the world they have. I feel like I'm under this spell and I don't want to be part of the judgments. People judge me and they might think I'm a loser. They might just throw me away and think I'm this useless, ugly person. It's just those people I never know, or they just pass me by. They don't see the full story. They just see the image of me. So they can say I look like a creep or whatever. Everyone does it when they're in the store. They just look at all these people and their thoughts. Yet maybe others aren't so bright to think in this way. I really don't want to fight anything or be a part of the nonsense. When women want to be so beautiful and the men have sex with them and have to be great, they have to be an outlaw or that individual that's a charmer. That jealousy I don't want to be a part of either, but it made me want to kill. I've just been so alone and unable to try so much. I've gotten so dark and full of hate that I want to murder others. It's never the way media wants to make it. The news try to make it seem like the country I live in is one, that we're living together in happiness and love for one another. That isn't true, and all these reporters just screw each other. They hate people just like everyone else in some way. When it comes to how they portray life for us on mainstream television, it's like it's far from real life. I can speak for myself, but I know it isn't so happy or pleasant for many. We live in this country together, and I'm hated and judged. I'm not equal to many people, and they live in this illusion of their justice. They're right to be who they are, and who they are is just this filthy, selfish, judgmental imbecile. They're just another person that is the same exact way. If everyone didn't want to be the same and break from their illusion, then what would that be like, and would it make the origin counterfeit? Would the fact that everyone is different or striving to be extraordinary really save us? Save us from what I guess is the question. We live, we die, and we appear into this life and grow up. Just because I see how stupid other people are doesn't mean they ever will or that it matters. That brings me to a point where I drift away from it all, and the point isn't made, where my philosophy doesn't need a point anymore, having reached so many. I just get sick of this never-ending process of thinking, defining, and having to put things in order and such. Everyone needs to make a statement or have some kind of gratification or of something or another, where the reasons they put so much into what they where the reasons why they put so much into what they do might be petty. One petty comment or insult can cause someone to be One petty comment or insult can cause someone to see a more massive reason to do something. The fuel to a fire versus straight up abuse. I suppose there is a difference of the two. This leads me to the next subject matter I've grazed in my life. If you know what abuse is and you're completely aware of its effects, you can see someone striking at your confidence and be able to mentally defend yourself. That battle goes on inside, even though people are on the outside and throw punches at it. Still, if you're aware of your confidence and able to accept the truth of your flaws, where you are responsible and the person causing them, then you can't just blame others for your problems on abuse. If you think you have been abused, then maybe you should seek therapy. Then again, maybe you'll just live in the lie you want to believe. That can be a tough situation when you're deciding who you are. You can really be anything you want to in your own head. Yet that thing you are and what you found in yourself can just be a typical imbecile, unable to see past themselves into their real potential and capability. Your inability to see what you can accomplish, granted you have the right mentality, that is your fault, and you should probably make other arrangements with yourself. Being so narrow and set on one single way of yourself is like trapping yourself. With the right mentality, you can accomplish a lot more than you realize. Unless you already know this, then I guess you discovered your aspirations are training for something beyond your average self. Finding out who you are is kind of just reaching this point where you know what you want. You manage your life and keep it stable enough to work towards something. Finding your confidence and knowing you don't have to subject yourself to anyone that tries to hurt you. That you don't have to deal with or accept the labels and judgments people throw your way. Seeing beyond yourself into a higher purpose, but also knowing who to trust. Make those smart decisions and don't rest your head for far too long. Something might just catch you off guard. There is a deep part to everyone that they experience. There's a deep part to everyone and they experience what they do. Sometimes I think we're all just savage animals. No matter how much we want to be human, we kill, and violence is in our nature to survive. So having a heart and placing so much trust into yourself or others can be foolish. The hatred and stupid things people do are real. Their stupidity can get others killed or be a major inconvenience. I'm not willing to die for stupid people who drag me into their messes. I've been through restless years and countless days just wanting something. Seems I was never really sure what that was. Maybe it was because I never really got the right amount of love growing up. I dropped out of high school and got my GED. I never went to prom or any of that. If the school I went to ever had a dance, I never went. I don't like dancing, and I hopefully never will. I strongly dislike if people try to get me to dance. We all aren't so complicated, and how crazy we are is up to us. If you can't just take a second and put everything on pause, then that's your fault. A lot of the time, I think I just tell people things they already know. Yes, some of those people seem so lost and distant, unable to make the right choices to be happy or live for a higher purpose. I guess a higher purpose isn't for everybody. Maybe I'm just meant to be an average person and all that. The star of yesterday seems to be different today. Who we are in the world seems to be exposed and fragile no matter who we are. It could be all over in an instant. We are just these faces on the internet setting up shop to get likes. When really it doesn't really matter that much. I guess that doesn't change that people will continue to live in an internet fantasy land. Really, I mostly think nothing at all in my day-to-day life. I just reach this point of disinterest. I already thought about so many things and that it just becomes so overrated and boring. Solutions are easily sought and found until I start to think about some other subject matter. Then I have to pick up that apart too and think about everything to do with it. It seems the hype of understanding anything becomes dull. So finding yourself can really not be what it seems to be at all, when who we are truly can be so insignificant to the world, but also capable of so much impact in it, limited by our own individuality and originality. So the limits can just be these possibilities, but none of us have to do anything. We don't have to live out dreams or possibilities. We don't have to supersede others and overachieve with our skill. We can be perfectly fine being a normal person of average comprehension. Still, either route I take, it seems to get so bland and be the same. I guess the excitement and enthusiasm is there. I'm just not easily impressed. I suppose what people like to hold in their high acclamation. They hold their sport or favorite musician in such high regards as a fanatic. The hype they put into what we see as talent of everyday people is typical. Everyone is just an everyday person, but they can somehow gain that higher opinion, where people hold them so high as stars of interest. On another note, I don't see anyone as magical as they think they are. We're all just biological beings with muscles and biomechanical movements that use energy, causing us to function in this universe. Wherever or however we go is just what it is. Most people have beliefs, but they're just theories to what life actually is. Yet there is an answer, no matter what it is. No matter how much we want to believe in our theories, there is an answer out there, and that is the truth. So I settle with the understanding that I know it without knowing it. I know that there is an answer to existence and it being real. There is a factual way that somehow I'm a human being writing those words. Another way to choose to see it is there doesn't have to be an answer. There doesn't have to be conflict or any answers I conclude to make this difficult. I don't have to have a struggle of deciding or settling on anything. Despite what I think, there is only one actual explanation. So assuming I just decide, I know that there is an answer and it's there. So since I know it's there, like I know already without knowing the specific details, somehow, some way we exist. So that's enough information. So what's the point to arguing or conflicting with other people? Making statements to people who decide what they believe can be useless? Why should I be the one to talk to them into my understandings anyways? They might see me as stupid or something, but I see them in similar ways. I can see them in similar ways, but all in all, what they think can be irrelevant. So why even give them recognition of them even being alive? That their whole entire belief system is just a sham and not as significant as they want to think. I already know what they understand in practice. I could do the same, but then there's someone else with a belief that creates controversy with even that belief, where I make others irrelevant to just spark controversy. I don't see the point in dragging any of it out or clashing with anyone. I guess I just have this logical take on everything. Seems the minimalist is taken by the extremists in given situation. The extremists can have a very clear purpose to their controversial social complications that they cause. The minimalist can be a director of relevance, and they seem to dodge all of it at the same time, avoiding any intense confrontations by the ones trying to get in the face of non-believers. The non-believers, anything that can be taken too far, where it can be just stupidly pursued in this almost sacred establishment of salvation through their individuality. They can think they are so important, yet they get subjected to such extreme, bold purposes. I don't try to be the person who says that whichever way I say is the best, that my opinions are correct and everyone should agree. I don't want to be the person that is so opinionated or organized to the point of strict requirements. I found that not everyone does agree with me or are able to understand what I do, even though I'm just the typical philosophical type who has these pointless thoughts, it seems. This isn't hard for a decently smart person to see. So even though I think my way out of my average life, I find this wisdom and strength in what I think that makes me special. Yet it doesn't mean others can't harness similar strength. That their ability and everything they're fighting for can just overthrow my work. So in that extreme, I would have to be very connected in and willing to do whatever it takes. Sometimes doing whatever it takes isn't enough to be the best. I believe that I'm fighting for myself and everything I am. I've seen some ugly people, and they've helped me see what I was fighting for, even though the more sophisticated people would offer me some hope or insight to me overcoming struggles. I feel like nobody can fight my fight or live my life for me. If I decide to limit myself or think so low from someone else, then that's my fault. If I'm not the best I could be because I took someone mediocre advice, then that's my fault. I see the situations and I don't like to degrade myself no matter how much better someone else is. Are they better in skill? But what's the quality of a soul? How could my soul be equal to theirs? Sure, our bank accounts or our trophy rooms might have a difference. I don't even have a trophy room anyways. Well, not currently, but who knows if that would ever be something I require. Still, I can't let other people in society decides is better than me, be better than me. Even though I won't have their skills or riches, I still refuse to let this judgmental system of rejection and inequality target me. Even still, in that personal choice, it will still inevitably victimize me as it does so many. So many. Seeing life in that light was my mistake to begin with. People are just people, and some do overachieve somehow. It seems they do it impossibly at times. Still, I guess paying attention to how great others are in comparison can make a person feel low. They don't have to feel low and can just be happy as a fan. Everyone seems to be a fan of something. You decide for yourself who you are and what you want to do. It's really not that hard to figure out if you really want to. Sometimes we're just lost and someone else guides us back. Other times we mess things up so bad it seems there is no hope. Yet no matter where we end up, we can decide who we are and try to be who we really want to be. Don't be intimidated by success or defeat the darkness wherever it keeps you. For however long you are in the darkness, there is a way out, even if you become one with the darkness and grow accustomed to it. You can find yourself because you've been there all along. What you've been looking for has been inside yourself, just waiting to be discovered. You have choices and you can live up to whatever you want to. If you have the mentality or gain the mentality, you can find peace. You can find yourself even if you never knew yourself. Sometimes it can be hard to accept we've been lost our whole life, yet the real you is just waiting to break free and live the life it was supposed to. It's up to you to recognize and discover what waits on the inside. It's up to you to decide when and how you'll find yourself. This is how to find yourself. By Seth Kinstle. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something from it, whoever listens.